You're listening to They Shoot Films with Ken Mercer and F.T. Kosempa.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of They Shoot Films. I'm Ken Mercer, and I'm here, as always, with the great F.T. Kosempa. F.T., how's it going?
It's going well, Ken. How you doing?
I'm feeling rather nostalgic.
Why is that?
If I had to pick one word to describe Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it would be nostalgia. Would you agree with that?
Yearning for the past. Yeah, except the fact that it's creative revisionist history. It's yearning for a sort of past that never was, turning a tragedy into a comedy in a way, a bad ending into a good ending.
Well, isn't that kind of the essence of nostalgia? We long for a past, and when we do that, it's always an idealized past. We always think the past is better than. Or when we get nostalgic, we think, oh boy, that time was better. But whenever if we really did it critically, we'd say, oh wait, there were a lot of bad things going on at that time. But it's always this idealized version of the past. And
sometimes, yeah. I mean, unless it's in the face of certain real gruesome facts. But yes, I could see your twisted argument in favor of this.
Yeah. And I definitely think it was Tarantino trying to create this idealized version of the Hollywood, that the last gasps of Hollywood's golden age.
Yep.
I never lived in L.A. I almost moved there a couple of times. I never moved to L.A. But I have this idealized, nostalgic view of L.A. at that time, and maybe it's partly because when I was a young pup, my parents took me and my sister on a trip to California and L.A. probably right around the time of this movie, I would think, and it made such an impression on a young Ken Mercer that I ended up moving to California, not to L.A., but to Northern California. And it's funny because when I watched this film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the lighting, the outdoor lighting, really feels to me, it matches up with the memories I have of that childhood trip in my mind.
Yes, Kodachrome.
Yes, they give us those nice bright colors.
Yeah, they sure do.
I was reading some some psychological studies where they induced nostalgia in subjects, and
by making them watch a Quentin Tarantino film.
Exactly. But yes, when you have nostalgia, it actually can manifest itself in physical symptoms such as insomnia and depression and suicide and
hilarious laughter.
Yes. But yes. So it's sorry. The Greek word is it's pain for what is missing.
Missing.
Which is, I think, in Buddhism, the essence of all pain, longing for what you don't have. But Frank.
Yes, Ken.
F.T.
Yes.
What is this film about? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, what would you say it's about?
I have no idea, buddy.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
For me, as I said it before, I think it's about wish fulfillment.
The alternative history.
Creative revisionist history is what I call it. That usually is in the realm of science fiction, and grossly like had the Nazis won,
right,
or, blah, 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 that kind of thing. Here it's built up in such a realistic way for, 4/5 of the film. And absolutely, after they come back from Italy, it just changes into a very short film about something which we all know about, the tragedy of the murders at Sharon Tate's place.
An alternative history of that horrible night.
Well, you mean, but alternative fictional history, because alternative, it's a strange word, alternative history. History implies a fact. So the fact is that, there was a murder there, but so alternative, I guess it's at a different place.
Histalgia. I'd like to read a quote from an anonymous Reddit forum poster, and I quote here. Why is it so hard, and hard is all capitalized, why is it so hard for people to understand this movie? It's not Tenet or Inception. It's a love letter to 1960s L.A. with two fictional characters mashed with a real-life story, and a damn good movie. It'll be a classic in years to come. And when people say it's slow or some shit, well, have you seen any of the other Tarantino movies?
You asking me? You talking to me?
No, that's the anonymous
yeah.
Redditor asking that.
Yeah.
And I think that, as I said, it's about nostalgia. It's about this missing the past. But I think it's a little bit more than that. I think it's a lot like Magnificent Ambersons in that it's about people at a point in time, right as the societal order is changing. I think I've said to you before, I really feel that Boogie Nights is Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnificent Ambersons, where you have this family of pornographers at a time when the video pornography industry is making a change from film, and at a time when it was maybe considered to be like making art, to video and just clinical and hardcore. But this film is about people at a time right when Hollywood, some people consider this the real ending of the golden age of Hollywood, but definitely the change of society in Hollywood and the end of the 60s.
Yes, and Joan Didion is the one that really pointed that out when I read her last summer, when I was reading her.
Yes.
She said that, basically, 1969, the murder.
Yes.
The murder at, how do you say whatever it's referred
Cielo.
to. But
Cielo Drive.
Cielo Drive, that this murder, everything changed after this.
Yes.
The drugs got worse. Everything got more desperate. People were meaner, more rip-offs, just fear, a lot more fear. Yeah.
So you're referring to Joan Didion's collection, The White Album, where she talked about this. And of course, White Album is a reference to these killings. The Manson family, Charlie Manson, felt there was messages being delivered to him through the Beatles' White Album, and Joan Didion called her book The White Album. Oh. You're talking generally about Joan Didion said this, said that. Give us an exact quote, please.
I don't have one.
How about this one? Quote, "Many people I know in Los Angeles believe that the 60s ended abruptly on August 9th, 1969. It ended at the exact moment when word of the murders on Cielo Drive traveled like brush fire through the community. And in a sense, this is true."
That's what I was remembering,
Yeah.
that line.
I feel like this is Tarantino's White Album. He was doing what Didion did in the White Album. He's doing it. What's interesting is Didion was living in Hollywood, lived not too far from Cielo Drive when these murders happened. Tarantino was only 6 years old, but obviously Tarantino was living in L.A., grew up in L.A., so he was there. But it's interesting that he has this nostalgic, idealized look back at the time, but also this notion, which I think he's trying to convey, is these two characters in the film industry at a point where everything was about to change.
Yes, but I think he got his feelings from watching movies from this period, too. I mean, he was too young.
Yes.
He was too young.
Yes.
He's a film whatever you call it. Not a filmophobe, the other one.
He's a filmalgia.
Filmiac, so he has no idea, but he's, just going through recreating, as they do with the sets.
Yes.
That's not CGI, is it?
Tarantino hates CGI. Good for him.
Yeah.
So everything was practical on this movie.
No shit.
Except
Jesus.
for one scene that uses CGI. Do you know what it is, FT?
Is it the place where he asks if anybody wants some fried sauerkraut?
No, that was practical.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. Yes.
When he burns up the Nazis?
Yeah. What do you mean? That was not CGI.
Okay. All right. So he really burned up some Nazis.
No, I mean stunt people.
Do that.
Yeah, get lit. There were.
It looked like he sort of clouded the frame with flames, and it really
again, you can blow smoke into a set, fog into a set.
Yeah,
that's still practical.
Anyhow, that was my
CGI.
guess. So when is it?
It's when they put Rick Dalton in the Steve McQueen movie, The Great Escape. So that's actually footage from.
Oh, right, of course.
And he was unable to recreate it for, I forget what the reasons were, including some a lot of the actors that needed to be in that scene being dead. So he CGI'd DiCaprio into the place of Steve McQueen.
Good job.
So basically, we're following these characters in this time in history where everything's changing around them. And then, of course, this cataclysmic change that ends the 60s, ends this age in Hollywood. And a quote from Candice Bergman's memoir that I think sums this up pretty well. And by the way, Candice Bergen, any connections to Cielo Drive in your mind, FT?
I know there is a connection. That's it. No.
She was Terry Melcher's girlfriend. And so Terry Melcher being the music producer that basically was getting Charlie Manson involved with the Beach Boys, and Charlie Manson thought Melcher was going to get him a record deal. And that's what supposedly set this whole crime in motion, Manson being so pissed off at Melcher. But Melcher and Candy Bergen lived at this Cielo Drive house before Polanski and Sharon Tate moved in. Somebody
told me that they heard like demos that Manson did, songs.
Yes, they're out there.
They're out there.
Yes. No, it's pretty bad.
Love songs? Yeah. I would love to hear a Charlie Manson love song.
Here's what Candice Bergen said, finally getting to it. Quote, most of Southern California claims some connection with the slaughter, marveling at their karma, shuddering at having stared death in the face. Los Angeles was in shock. For months, no one talked of anything else. Gates and guard dogs went up everywhere overnight. And that was kind of the change that these murders brought, that stars, which had been somewhat accessible, started hiring bodyguards and walls went up. But
also, the whole hippie culture and, the freedom was a contrast of what happened in the day to day. That was amazing, because it was all open, free parties, hanging out. And then all of a sudden, everybody clamping down, everybody getting fearful. Fear coming in when it was, free love, baby,
Right. And of course...
you sound depressed.
Well, it's depressing. I have, I have an algae. I have an...
FT says something, algae.
Should we talk about the origins of this film?
I think we should. Toot sweet. That's French,
Well, there's not really much to say.
There's no origins to it.
No, there is an origin, but it's. We should be brief because I think Quentin Tarantino, unlike basically any other, is the director that has, is a cultural icon. It's like everybody knows about Quentin. Part of that is engineered by him and his proclivity to be out there interviewing and talking to everyone. Part of it was Miramax building that reputation for him. So I think most of the facts about Tarantino are known, but just to recap, he was desperate to be in films. He studied acting. He wanted to be an actor. And while waiting for his big break, he worked at a video store, Video Archives in Manhattan Beach. But he sells the script of True Romance to Tony Scott for, I think, $30,000 in Tarantino's telling of it. And I think after he does that, he leaves Video Archives. He gets an apartment in Hollywood. It's interesting story here. Tony Scott buys True Romance. Have you seen True Romance, FT?
I have. I can't recall it, though.
Yeah, Gary Oldman, Christian Slater. So Tony Scott buys that script from Tarantino and then calls him up and says, Quentin, this is going to be a big-budget movie, and sorry, just to back up for a second to make this story work. So it's Tony Scott, who is a big director and a huge director in his own right. Ridley Scott's brother, they're partners at Scott Free Production, super Hollywood power. So Tony Scott calls up a very young Quentin Tarantino, who's just made $30,000, the most money he's ever had, and says, Quentin, this is going to be a big budget movie. I can't make a film where everybody in the film dies at the end. This isn't going to work. So I'd like you to hire you to rewrite it. And Tarantino, even at that age with only $30,000 in his pocket, says, Tony, you bought it. You can rewrite it.
Nice. Excellent.
And refuses it.
And he never did.
Oh, no, he never did. And
right. Wow. He sold it and moved on. Huh.
One interesting thing about Tarantino in the origin story that's of note, I think, is which something you might not have think about or might not have known.
Me?
Or me. Anybody.
Everybody. Right. Yes.
Well, did you know this? Everything he's ever written has been made.
I did not know that.
He's never had a project. He's never had a script that he didn't get made.
How about that?
Which is pretty remarkable.
That is. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think we have to go through, Pulp Fiction and the other movies because their histories are so well known, and Tarantino's done so many interviews and there's been so much ink spilled over him. But this film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he worked on for 8 years. Were you aware of that, FT?
No.
He started it as a novel, and he kept coming back to. He would write it, and whenever he was between movies or at a time, and he wanted to warm up his writing, he would work on this novel, which he said it was a novel. Then he said, "No, I'll do it as a play," and then it became a movie. And it's interesting. I heard an interview with him about writing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and how he worked on it, and then it would go backwards. And he said it was like syphilis. And the interviewer said, "Well, what do you mean it was like syphilis?" And he said, "Oh, I mean it was like Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the hill, and it kept rolling back down."
The myth of syphilis. Yeah. Well, he should have gone to at least one class.
So Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is Tarantino's 9th film, and it is his penultimate film. Are you aware of that, FT?
I am not.
He has very famously said he would only do 10 films and then stop.
What's he going to do, TV then?
He says he's going to continue writing novels. He's going to write. He already has a book of film criticism out called Cinema Speculation. So he's going to write nonfiction about films. He's going to write novels, but no more films. And can you guess at his stated reasons for saying 10 films and then he's going to stop?
Somebody must have made 10 films and that was it. The Decalogue. The 10 Commandments.
Interesting, because that would be like Tarantino. But he says he has a theory that as directors get old, he says they get worse. And hadn't really thought about it that way. After I heard him say it, I did think it through off the top of your head, since you're hearing it for the first time. Agree or disagree, FT?
It seems to be the case, doesn't it?
Interesting. I really thought when I posed this to you, I thought you were going to come in with some obscure director from.
Dreyer is Ordette Navia's last film, and it's a good one.
It is.
I mean, The Searchers I dislike that film, and that's a late John Ford film, which would be a counterexample because people like that film, but I don't.
That would be, but I think Searchers was not Ford's last film.
No, but
right?
He's talking about after a certain point when you get to be old. He wasn't a young man at that point, so.
Yeah. But Hitchcock, it's true.
Billy Wilder, it's true.
Wells, true.
Yeah.
Not necessarily his fault that things got worse. Polanski, I feel like it's true. I know as a Pole, you probably have to defend Polanski no matter what.
No, I don't have to defend Polanski no matter what.
But I think Tarantino's point is directors peak and then they keep working past their peak. And why wouldn't they? Once
right.
Being able to be a film director, why would you ever stop?
Right.
On your own. So they keep making films even though they passed their peak. So I guess the question for you, any director, FT, that wasn't like killed in a car crash or a plane crash, any director who died a natural death who stopped making films at their peak, that their final film was their finest film?
I can't think of anybody. No.
I can't either.
But I can think of somebody, the term a late masterpiece, but I can't. So anyhow, I get the point, and I get his point.
Well, I think Tarantino would call this film his late masterpiece, but again, his idea is that he wants to go out on top, not in decline, which, as I said, is interesting because once you've had a taste of being having all the power of being a film director,
right,
to voluntarily stop is pretty amazing.
It is. Arthur Rimbaud, the poet, the French poet, he stopped as a young man in his 20s.
By the way, I think Schwarzenegger, that was when he played Rambo. I think that was
awesome.
That was one of his best performances. Sorry, I couldn't read.
Yes.
So Tarantino calls Once Upon a Time in Hollywood his magnum opus. He's saying that the final film nobody should be expecting. He said it's basically going to be something minor. Not up to the standards of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And interestingly enough, when they were sending out casting requests, or I forget what you call them, the title was, I think, Quentin Tarantino Magnum Opus is what they were calling it.
How about that?
So I have a question for you, FT. In your opinion, is this Quentin Tarantino's best film?
Yes. Asterisk.
Okay, what's the asterisk? He takes steroids.
It's not.
He's like Barry Bonds. Most home runs in history, asterisk.
Asterisk, right. It's because I don't think it's a super great film, but, it's a good film. Very good film. Yes. Is it his best?
Yeah, I would say I think it's his best. And my number 2 is not, well, it's tough. I really like Jackie Brown a lot.
So do I. Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Pulp Fiction, I think the only reason it has moved down for me is I've seen it so many times.
Right.
But the experience of seeing that for the first time, second time, third time, I would have put it above this film. But now,
well, the thing that this movie has, it has a lot of cinematic technique in here. Like there's films within the film, great deletions, great character work. Yeah, he's pulling out all the stops. So it's a compendium of
yes. Yes.
History of cinema in a way, of released
yes,
contemporary.
and TV, pop culture,
TV,
comic books.
Exactly, yeah. Which is all that Cliff reads, right? Comic books, yeah.
Whereas Rick reads Mad Magazine.
Exactly.
But I love this version of Tarantino. And when I say this version of Tarantino, take off the end of the film, take off the last, whatever the
tantrum at the end, yeah.
When the Manson gang shows up at Cielo Drive for the final time. Take that off the film. I love this Tarantino being someone who is a super capable, great director, great visually, great actors, great cinematography, but without what you think of as Tarantino, which is the over-the-top violence.
There's just a couple glimmers. Right.
So why don't we talk about our favorite scenes? Why don't you pick your favorite scenes? I'll pick mine. We'll see if they match up. What's your top scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, FT?
Top scene. I just won't go there with the top scene. But
FT, if you read paragraph 6 of your contract with they shoot
top
film
scenes.
Yeah, top scenes. What's your top scene?
I have no top scene. No matter what, I break my contract, and we'll go into arbitration or whatever. That's for unions.
Did you read your contract? There's no arbitration clause.
No,
there's no arbitration clause.
No, I didn't read it. God damn it.
Okay.
I did like the scene with the 6-year-old, the 8-year-old actress.
Yeah, great. It's
quite
great.
a bit on the set of Lancer.
It's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah, everything about that was great. A little bit over heavy-handed with the parable of Easy Breezy, the novel he's reading. Everybody knows that Rick is reading a Western, and
yes, I'm with you. I love that scene, and Tarantino loves that scene because have you read the novelization of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
No, I have not.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that, but that scene is very significant in terms of the novelization. So,
well, when you say about what the film's about, it's one of the stories is about coming to terms with feeling useless after a career, which is the parable. I call that the parable of Easy Breezy, and I really love how the young girl, the 8-year-old actor. Goes from being sort of standoffish and professional, and because of course Rick's there honking and snorting and spitting and throwing paper cups,
right.
And excuse me, but then she's like on his looking up at him and go, poor Easy Breezy,
right.
And
yes,
yeah, it was beautiful scene. So how about you, Ken?
My favorite scene, surprisingly, and it gets back to, as I said, the film being nostalgia and being this time capsule and loving being in the atmosphere. It's just the scene where the first time Cliff drops off Rick Dalton at his house, mm-hmm. and then again, only Tarantino would really. We just get 3 minutes of Cliff driving through 1969 Los Angeles.
Yes,
it's shot great, it's edited great. But also just amazing. We talked about it before. No other director would be able to get away with doing that. To saying no, I want to shoot this no CGI, practical.
Right.
We're going to shut down the freeways. We're going to only have period cars brought in. We're going to put new dressing on all the store. I mean, it was so expensive to do. For a line producer looking at it and saying, wait, Quentin, what are you talking about? He'll leave Rick's house, say goodnight. I'll pick you up at whatever it is, 7 a.m. sharp.
Cut to
Cliff going into his trailer. But
or the car pulling up, the camera gear. Yeah. But no, I agree. No, it's beautiful. Now, wait, you said they did a facelift of, what is it, Hollywood Boulevard and all that, like a set?
What do you mean a set?
And they took it down?
Well, so obviously when Sharon Tate goes to the theater, to the Bruin, and sees herself in her movie The Wrecking Crew, definitely in that scene where you see the storefronts, you really see them. They dress them all to look period. And what was interesting, it turns out the store owners were giving them a hard time. No, you can't do this. And then afterwards, a lot of them were like, "Wait, you have to take this stuff down. We want to keep it."
Okay, nice. Yeah.
But the driving scene, Cliff's driving scene. If you can't do CGI, you have to shut down all the roads, because otherwise you're going to get
a Honda
and a Tesla or a Honda.
Yeah.
So it's just incredibly expensive to do.
Yes.
And again, the way it was shot, and it's kind of just pure cinema and recreating the time. Again, it's a strange pick, and it would not have been my pick after seeing the movie for the first time, or it wouldn't have been my pick after seeing the movie for the second or third time. But at this point, I just really enjoy that scene. What's your number 2 pick, FT? I know you refuse to use numbers, but what's your next pick for favorite scene?
It's a quick one. It's when she goes into the bookstore, when Sharon Tate goes into the bookstore.
Yes.
And asks for her first edition, a copy of Tess of the D'Urbervilles, Thomas Hardy's novel, which of course.
By the way, sorry to interrupt, but I loved him in Inception. He was great.
Back from the grave. He wrote the novel. Yeah, I mean, that was just one of those moments when you go like, well, that's what was going to happen, because the movie is dedicated to, I just watched that about 6 months ago.
Sorry, you're talking about Roman Polanski's.
Polanski's film on Tess, and the Hardy novel.
Which was called Tess, and I think came out in 1979, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, but it's dedicated to Sharon, is what I believe. Yeah.
Right on the opening credits, right after Polanski's credit, I think he's got a written and directed by credit, and then in the lower right it says for Sharon.
Right. Trivia question for you. I know how much I love them. Here's one for you. What does a first edition Tess cost?
FT, you need to read your contract.
No trivia questions.
Right.
To
no,
Ken
right?
Mercer.
Yes. You have to receive trivia questions, but you may not ask
the
them.
Receiver.
In fact, you just
come on, do it,
okay.
buddy, do it.
What is it? Was a first edition of Thomas Hardy's
Tess of the D'Urbervilles? Yes.
What does it go for?
What can it go for?
Well, that's a bullshit question, because as somebody who has many books they're trying to promote on this podcast, people list books on eBay for, like, I have a book, an advertising book that it's listed on Amazon for like $600, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to sell it then. But no, so people put things up for ridiculous prices. But what's the average selling price for a first edition of
I
Tess?
didn't go through all that.
Okay, what's the price?
But it's as high as $10,000, a 3-volume one, and pretty much you see them for over $1,000, certainly $5,000. The old bindings, 1890 something. But. So she was buying an expensive book even back then,
right.
And then, that goes into, I will just say, it was really, and I was going to use this word, and it's one of those words like splendid that I'll never use, but it was delightful watching her reaction to her role in the Mad Helm movie. How she
amazing.
was she was just, really enjoying the fact that people were enjoying her work. Particularly also her dirty feet when she had her feet up on the, because she walked around in bare feet.
Yes.
As the hippie types did back then, So
my next scene is the first Musso and Frank scene, and I meant to look if they built it. I'm pretty sure it's actually inside Musso and Frank's, which is still there in Hollywood. That scene has so many things going for it. One is just the look of it and everything else, but you've got 3 great actors who act great together, as the old candy bar commercial went.
Again.
It's interesting. Bob Richardson, the cinematographer who has done so many films, says that shooting that scene with DiCaprio, Pitt, and Pacino in one place was the highlight of his career, which is saying a lot.
Nice.
But just besides the star power and everything else, DiCaprio at that table, seeing his career and life crumble before his eyes, may be the highlight of his career. It's a pretty amazing performance.
It is.
As he reacts to Pacino, the agent, Marvin Schwartz.
I love how Pacino goes, pow, boom, like the Batman imitation, yeah.
So you hire a guy from a canceled show to play Abby. Then at the end of the show, when they fight, it's hero besting heavy. Now, in another couple of years playing punching bag to every swinging dick new to the network, that's gonna have a psychological effect on how the audience perceives you.
Right.
So, Rick, who's gonna kick the shit out of you next week? How about Batman and Robin? Ping, pow, zoom. Down goes you, down goes your career as a leading man.
He wasn't being the yelling Al Pacino, which was just great.
Oh, well, yeah.
Great. I was just like, Jesus.
Yes, it was Pacino not chewing the scenery, which at this point in his career he tends to do. And this one, I don't find his performance to be operating on the plane of pure realism, but he's perfect. And Tarantino said he wrote the role for Pacino.
I believe that. Yeah, I believe that.
I don't know if you noticed the bookends that happened at Musso and Frank's with Cliff Booth.
I do not. What are you talking about?
Okay, so Rick Dalton introduces Marvin Schwartz to Cliff Booth. And
you mean the line from Brad Pitt?
Yeah. Brad Pitt, yes, plays Cliff Booth, yes.
Right.
Says, introduces, they go around and around, but he says, no, this is my friend. And he goes back and forth with Pacino, and Pacino says, you're a good friend. And Cliff Booth says, I try.
Right.
And basically the final line of the movie before the little epilogue with Jay Sebring is Cliff being taken away in the ambulance, and Brad Pitt says,
Hey, I'm not gonna die. I may get a limp, but I ain't gonna die. It's not my time yet, man. All right. Come visit me tomorrow. Bring bagels.
You gotta go.
All right then, Cliff. Well, see you tomorrow then. Hey! You're a good friend, Cliff. I tried.
and that's the end of Cliff. He drives off in the ambulance. All right, your next favorite scene, FT.
It's a quickie, and it's at Spawn Movie Ranch.
Okay.
And my only point is that when Cliff, finally gets into the house past Squeaky, the redheaded one,
yes.
Yes. I really expected, and this was the second time I saw it, and I sort of blanked. And I was like, I really expected something more like a psycho, like a desiccated corpse. You know what I mean?
Of course. I think Tarantino said his favorite film is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That is, he said.
Jesus, see, that's stupid.
And the Spahn Ranch scene, he wanted it. The whole setting inside George Spahn's house. He's using all the cinematic language of a horror film, where you expect somebody's going to jump out at you.
That's what I'm saying, my friend. Yes.
Right.
But I'm a little surprised that it was as friendly as it ended up being. And, you want to talk about performances later, but Bruce Dern there, the whole dialogue there, as Cliff tries to, just reacquaint, make sure everything's okay, was surprising, because, okay, you have a filmmaker who's using all this iconography of horror films and all that, and you still don't know whether he's going to go through with it or not go through with it. Is he going to have something that's going to be horrific, or is it going to be something that's not so horrific?
Oh, yeah, right.
It's interesting. Wait. It's interesting to have him go where it becomes like, oh, it's just okay, as Bruce Dern goes. It's okay.
Sure.
And that was a nice surprise for me.
Clearly, Tarantino's intent for this whole scene, and even to the point where we see Cliff go into George's room, and we're seeing his point of view of George on the bed. The setup is he's dead. He's not moving at all. So we think, oh, he's dead.
Except there's minus the buzzing flies.
There are buzzing flies.
Yeah, I know. There's a rat in a glue trap, too, which is, unbelievable. But, yes. Anyhow, yeah.
Should we go another round on favorite scenes, FT, or should we move on?
Is it your turn?
Yes, it's my turn.
Go ahead.
Well, actually, I had Sharon Tate here, so I'm going to have to move on. It probably the audience would be upset if I didn't mention it because it's such a memorable standout scene, which is the Bruce Lee at the movie set with Cliff Booth. Your thoughts?
It's your scene, buddy. I have plenty of thoughts about that.
Do you like it?
Oh, of course.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Because it's again like Inglourious Bastards. You know what's going to happen.
Hey, you. You're kind of pretty for a stuntman.
That's what they tell me.
So, did I say something funny, stuntman?
Yeah, you kind of did.
What's so funny?
You're a little man with a big mouth and a big chip. And I think you should be embarrassed to suggest you be anything more than a stain on the seat of Cassius Clay's trunks.
Brother, you're the one with the big mouth. And I would really enjoy closing it, especially in front of all my friends. But my hands are registered as lethal weapons. That means we get into a fight, I accidentally kill you. I go to jail.
Anybody accidentally kills anybody in a fight, they go to jail. It's called manslaughter. And I think all that lethal weapon horse shit is just an excuse so you dancers never have to get in a real fight.
My guess is that Bruce Lee wasn't such an arrogant little fucking guy.
Oh no, that's the whole controversy around this scene.
It is?
Yeah, Bruce Lee's daughter publicly, came out against this scene, and Tarantino has publicly defended it. I think Anne Marie could find. I'll try to get her the clip from a podcast because I know where it is. But Tarantino was asked about this, and Tarantino said, "Well, I can understand Bruce Lee's daughter being upset about the portrayal of Bruce Lee because, after all, she's his daughter. But everybody else can go suck a dick."
He says that?
Yeah.
What a fucker.
So he's been interviewed about, Tarantino's been interviewed about this a lot of times, and says it's historically accurate that especially stunt people hated Bruce Lee because he would what's called in the business tag them. When they were doing fight scenes with stunt people, he would actually kick them or hit them, not full out. And stunt people don't like that. So he had a terrible reputation in Hollywood. So that's what's interesting. Since Cliff is a stunt person, he would have known this bad reputation of Bruce Lee being a jackass. So. Yeah.
It's interesting, though, because in the other scenes where shows intercuts with Bruce Lee training Sharon Tate.
Yes. Which is accurate.
Right, which is part of the great thing about the script, how it weaves in there. That he seems to be like a sort of nice guy, although they inappropriately give almost a high five for 1969 did not exist. And also he does J. Sebring, right? He trains him a little bit, which just puts him as more of a,
Well, I gotta stop there. What's this business about high fives not existing in 1965?
There's no such thing as a high five in 69. Everybody was giving skin. It was slapping down. But, yeah. So anyhow.
So it was actually Jay Sebring, the character in this, the real life character in this movie who's with Sharon Tate when they're murdered, is the one who introduced Sharon Tate to Bruce Lee to train her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I mean it's all connected. In your opinion, would Cliff Booth be able to have done what he did to Bruce Lee?
Yes.
How so? Why?
If he was just equally trained. And he was a combat veteran.
Oh, you're right. You're saying it. So that's the thing. I've read the novelization, and I would encourage people listening to. It's definitely worth reading if you like the movie, even if you don't. Well, I don't think you'll like it if you don't like the movie. Maybe you would. But yeah, sorry. So I assume that you don't know that Cliff Booth was fought in World War II. Had killed a lot of people and was highly skilled in hand-to-hand combat.
Right.
Yeah.
I saw a fight one time with a special forces guy. It was so brief because of the skills, the skills exhibited.
Yes.
It was scary as shit, but.
So what Tarantino describes as the reason what Cliff did there, can you guess at what Tarantino says Cliff's methodology was in that fight?
No, I cannot.
So Bruce Lee says whoever puts the other person down 2 out of 3 wins.
Yes.
So Cliff knows it's going to be 3. So he's thinking, and he lets Bruce Lee come at him the first time, which Bruce does.
Yes.
Bruce comes and does a
kick,
a flying kick to his chest.
Yes,
and puts Cliff down. Cliff's thinking, okay, that's his go-to move, and this guy thinks I'm a nobody, and he just put me on my ass with his kick. He's going to do the same move again, which Bruce Lee does. At that point, Cliff is just waiting for that same move and sidesteps and uses Bruce Lee's own force to ruin Janet's car.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, which is a great trick of the camera. because
Yeah.
Bruce Lee would not make that. That was a great crash. I was like, whoop, I was phony as fuck,
Well, no, it was
I
also
liked
crazy because, when Janet comes out, what the fuck, blah, blah, blah. And Bruce Lee said, no, we weren't really fighting. No big deal. And
Right.
Cliff says, look at the car. If somebody had gone into the car and caused that much damage to a circa late 1960s Lincoln, they would
right.
be dead. They would be crippled.
Well, they'd be hurting, yes. They'd be certainly hurting something,
Yeah.
It would be an accidental death, manslaughter,
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
I did know one little trivial thing here, by the way. The woman that did that, what's her name?
Well, in the movie, her name is
Yeah,
Janet.
Kurt Russell's
her real
partner.
last name is Bell.
Right. And isn't she a stunt person? Because she's listed.
She is Uma Thurman's stunt double in the Kill Bill movies and has acted in a bunch of Tarantino movies. He gives her parts.
Her real name's Zoe, right?
I think so. Zoe Bell.
Yeah. So that name, I keep an ear out for that name. When I saw the credits, I was just like, wait, stunt person. Oh my God. Yeah.
So your next favorite film. Oh, sorry. Can you
film? My next favorite.
I mean,
film.
sorry. Your next favorite scene.
Well, it has to do with the TV show. I liked it because it was so natural, and I've been involved in it.
Wait, you're losing me, so you probably lost the audience. So there's a TV show called Excuse Me that you really like.
Cut. There's a TV show. What I really liked about there was this TV show that these two fellows are watching, which is Cliff and Rick.
Right.
And that is the TV show called FBI.
Sure, my favorite.
I used to watch that show.
It's the FBI in color.
It's the FBI in color. That's correct.
Yes.
And they're back and forth.
With Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.
Zimbalist Jr.
Right.
You know who Ephraim Zimbalist was? His father?
No.
Famous violinist. Not quite as good as Jascha Heifetz, but Ephraim Zimbalist. I think people wrote concertos for him and all that. But I love the back and forth when these two guys are watching the TV.
Uh-oh. Here comes trouble. That's a smooth lead.
Thank you. All right, get ready for my big FBI moment.
They're all dead, babe.
Good. Michael Murtaugh.
The
Michael
F.T.
Murtaugh.
guest stars, James Ferrantino, Rick Dalton,
Like the chewing gum.
Norman Fell.
Strong.
Tonight's episode, all the streets are silent.
Except when Rick Dalton's got a fucking shotgun, I'll tell you that.
You're goddamn right.
So that was a real episode of. You probably have seen it, right?
No, I don't remember. But
Okay.
the real episode.
So the character that Tarantino replaces with Cliff Dalton is who? Is what actor?
Burt Reynolds.
Yes, you knew this.
No.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. No. So it's Burt Reynolds and Burt Reynolds' whole thing in that, I guess at that time, and
Are
in
you
that
kidding me?
Yeah. In that episode, he's like always chewing gum. So in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Tarantino makes a big deal out of Cliff and Rick saying, good chewing, strong.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I remember Burt, it just came out because a little while ago, it was like, People Starts and, like weird things to see. And it was like to see Burt Reynolds' early movie parts. And, I was thinking about the Burt Reynolds in American Hustle, the poster of him in the male nude to bring us to a connection of movies that we used to do. The movie needed a connection.
Right.
And it just popped in my head. How about that? No shit.
Yeah. No, but I'm glad you brought this up because, again, it's Tarantino with just this huge reservoir of pop culture stuff in his head. And he's putting it to its best, this incredible use of creating this fucking accurate time capsule. Here's another example of Tarantino's attention, like the insane attention to detail in this film. So you talked about Rick and Cliff at Dalton's house watching the FBI. The first night, remember, Cliff goes home, and after he sits down with his macaroni and cheese in front of the TV, he's watching a TV show. Do you know what the TV show was?
I liked it. Mannix.
Oh, you may be right. Maybe that. But there's another time Cliff watches a TV show, and it's Death in a Minor Key. Do you know the day that originally aired?
Lincoln's birthday. No.
February 8th, 1969. So
Jesus Christ.
Tarantino has these subtitles, February 8th, 1969, and he goes and finds a show that aired on that night and puts it in.
Fucking brilliant. That's great. Yeah. Good for him. Yep. Wow.
Before we move in onto our favorite lines, there were a couple things that caught my eye I wanted to mention, and little odds and ends, and I don't know if you have any FT.
I have
do
one.
You have any? You do?
Yeah, I definitely went.
Okay, I'm sorry I asked that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It better be. Did Cliff murder his wife? All we see is that one flashback scene.
Yes.
How?
With a harpoon.
That really? Seriously? She's complaining. She's being mean to him. Like, I married this fucking blah, blah, blah. And he's drinking a beer and he loads his harpoon up and that's how he does it.
I know you're going to be nitpicking and saying, oh, okay, what is the third most common weapon used in homicides in America?
Well, I don't know what the third is, but the fourth.
Harpoon.
Well, no, that's the fourth from what I've read.
No, third. Well, no, it was fourth until
the movie.
Until COVID. After COVID, harpoons moved up and became the third most frequent homicide weapon used in homicides. No, he shot his wife with the harpoon, and you can ask me, well, Ken, how do you know that?
And I can answer that from the novel.
Correct. Yes, it's in the novel. It's an intentional killing. She just I forget all the backstory between them. I don't think it was unlike most marriages that end in harpooning. it was not a happy marriage.
Near harpooning, Nerf harpoons. Ooh, there's a money maker there.
Right. It's a movie tie-in. the Nerf harpoon Cliff Booth doll. So she was on his case, and I guess he already had the harpoon in his hand, and so he intentionally harpooned her, and told the police it was accidental. It was an accidental death. The harpoon went off by accident. And apparently in the novel, his wife was so universally disliked around town that nobody
gave a shit.
Nobody.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
How about that?
But Janet, Kurt Russell's wife,
never forgave him. Yeah.
Holds it against Cliff.
Oh, here's another question. I do have another one.
Okay. I gave you
Who
one.
does the voiceover?
Oh, it's Kurt Russell.
That's what I thought. Because I was going down the list and I was trying to get the voice. It's Kurt Russell doing all the voiceover.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. How about that?
I have some things, as I said, I wanted to point out before we moved on. And you'll probably be all over this one, FT.
Are you serious?
The flamethrower. So obviously, perfect setup and payoff.
Yes.
Since we see the flamethrower right at the beginning of the film in the 14 Fists of McCluskey scene, and so definitely Tarantino was following Chekhov's advice. Playwriting rules that a harpoon in the first act must go off in the third.
You mean flamethrower?
Sorry.
The Nerf flamethrower. The super squirter flamethrower. Just like what Rick uses.
Yes. Chekhov's
flamethrowing theory.
Yes, Chekhov's maxim about a flamethrower in the first act must be fired in the third. But so we see the flamethrower right away, and then did you notice? Because I know you're an eagle eye guy. Do you see it when Cliff goes into the tool shed to get the stuff to fix the antenna? We just see it there against the wall. Not quite as subtly as Alexander Payne might have done it, but pretty subtly. Doesn't shove it in our faces. And then, of course, that flamethrower sure comes in handy in the murder scene.
The marshmallow scene.
Yes. I don't know if it's in the movie or in the book. It's like, I fried that hippie to a crisp.
No, I think he says that at Sharon's, something like that. Yeah. Sure did.
Jesus Christ, are you serious?
Yeah, I'm fucking serious. My buddy and his dog killed two of them, and then, I torched the last one.
Torched?
Yeah, I burnt her ass to a crisp.
How'd you do that?
Well, believe it or not, I got a flamethrower in my tool shed.
Oh, from the 14 Fists of McCluskey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's FT, since I know you're eagle-eyeing the movie and listening intently. What is the name of Sharon and Roman's dog?
Oh, He says that, the one line that the poorly cast Polanski says it. Oh, shoot.
Put you out of your misery. Dr. Saperstein.
Shut up.
I'm serious. No, I'm totally serious. It's
From Rosemary's Baby.
Yes, Dr. Saperstein is the doctor played by Ralph Bellamy in Rosemary's Baby. So do you think that's screwed up for Tarantino to do that, or do you think it's cool?
I think it's groovy, man.
Okay. So
what do you think?
Well, in real life, what was the name of Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate's dog? In real life, not the movie.
You mean there's a movie of Roman? Wait. Oh, Tess.
No, Benji.
Oh, shut up.
No, it was Dr. Saperstein. So it really was. The dog.
Fuck up with me.
No, so,
Beethoven.
No, so in real life, Polanski and Tate's dog was Dr. Saperstein. Tarantino, again, being so faithful to the facts, calls the dog Dr. Saperstein.
Yeah.
Okay,
nice.
here's the question. Sorry. Here's the question for you, FT, and I'm sure you'll answer it.
I love it.
What was Dr. Saperstein, the dog's cause of death?
Hit his head on a mantle.
Good
try.
Good try. Okay, I'm not making this up, okay?
Okay.
So none of that going in. So the Polish house guest, what was his name in the film?
I forgot. I keep wanting
right.
Yeah, I forget. Gutowski.
Wojciech, right? I think is his name.
Yeah.
So again, that was a real person, and because Sharon Tate hated to be alone in that house, I guess for good reason, when Roman was away. So there was always house guests, and that was Roman's friend, the Polish Wojciech, whatever, in real life, ran over Dr. Saperstein. Why is this funny? People like dogs, FT.
I do too, and it's
I know,
Mr. Sweetie.
Right. Sorry, that's your dog. So you are a dog owner.
Yeah.
So
and lover, not our owner, dog partner. You know?
Okay, Dr. Saperstein, the dog, was run over. Sorry, this is sounding like the game Clue.
with the lead pipe, you know? With the lead gasoline being burnt in the exhaust pipe. Yeah, it is like Clue.
Dr. Saperstein, the dog, was run over by the Polish house guest while he was backing up the car.
It's a little bit of a letdown with the backing up the car. With a candlestick in the steering wheel in the conservatory.
Okay, moving on then.
Yes.
Moving on to my next tidbit. So, as you know, one of the first scenes where we see Sharon Tate in the house, she puts on a record. Actually, I think it's Cliff is up on the roof fixing the antenna. He hears music. We see Sharon Tate in the house putting on a record. What was the record, FT?
It's a record that makes that Jay Sebring is Not So Cool with Jim Morrison. It's the Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Ding. You got it right, FT. It was it was a record by Paul Revere and the Raiders. What do you think the significance of that is?
Sharon Tate was going to study American history. I don't know what the hell. I don't know. Was it the song? Not the band.
What?
The song she was playing. I don't know what it was. What was it?
Okay, so the significance is Mark Lindsay, who was the lead singer of Paul Revere and the Raiders, was the previous tenant of the house on Cielo Drive with Terry Melcher.
Wow.
But it gets stranger.
Okay, how?
So Mark Lindsay moves out of the house of Cielo Drive. Polanski, Sharon Tate move in, and Sharon Tate and the four or five others get murdered by the Manson family. Mark Lindsay moves to Wonderland Avenue in Laurel Canyon into another rental, and then moves out, and then the Wonderland murders take place. The famous murders
Get the hell out of here.
where Johnny Wadd Holmes was accused of being the murderer.
Jesus.
You remember? Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, you really have dug into that stuff, man. Good man. Excellent.
Well, no, I did not. I didn't have to research it.
You had a dream.
I already had this collected because I always thought it was weird that every house I've lived in, when I move out, people get murdered. And then I started researching, like, oh, no, this is commonplace.
So your search term was other people like me. People also ask.
Right. People also ask, do people always get murdered after I terminate my lease?
Right. Wow. That's an interesting one. Yeah.
FT, what do you say we run through our favorite lines from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? There were quite a few good ones, but why don't we try to do our top 3 maybe? What was your number 1 line from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Your number 1 pick?
My number 1 pick is probably a major disappointment, but I laughed during a very horrible scene. It's when Cliff is tripping his ass off and the intruders come in, Tex to be exact, the Mansonite, and he's looking at him and he goes, "Are you real?" And Tex looks at him and goes, "Real as a fucking donut." I'm like, who but somebody like a QT would think of something like that? Real as a fucking donut. I laughed.
Yes.
There you go.
And is that going to be added to your vocabulary now?
Yes, it has been already.
It's interesting. This movie, it's not like, a mammoth screen.
Right.
I think my favorite lines are like, I don't know. I just love them, but they're small. Just like your donut line, they're not Shakespeare, but they, I don't know. They made me laugh. So mine is after the first Musso and Frank scene where Cliff hears from Marvin Schwartz basically about his career is over, and they go outside, and Rick explains to Cliff what happened, and he's crying. And sorry, they're outside getting their car, and the valet people are out there, and they are brown-skinned, and Cliff says to Rick, "Come on, man, don't cry in front of the Mexicans." For some reason, that cracks me up every time.
Me too. Me too.
Cracks me up every time.
It's a good one. Well, here's another cracker up.
Number 2.
Yes, and it's 2 lines, but they're in the same scene. It's the early one, the flash. It's the recreation of 14 Fists of McCluskey.
Yes.
When first one, here's the one that, you could tell that Quentin Tarantino was playing Army as a kid because he had the Germans say, "Open the curtains." And then, of course, Rick, as whoever he is, McCluskey goes,
Anybody order fried sauerkraut?
That was a good one, I thought. I laughed and laughed and laughed.
Since you brought up McCluskey, I will say, because I don't think we're enough time to do our usual cinematography section and production design. That it's interesting because Bob Richardson, the DP, is his signature thing, which I'm a little bit tired of, is he blows out surface. He'll blow out surfaces like the table in Hateful Eight by putting super hot light just bouncing right off the table, and he'll be shooting tungsten bounce film, but he'll shoot he'll have daylight bounce light, so it's like this blinding blown out light, which he does not do during the whole film, except he does it in 14 Fists. You saw the Germans are at this blown out Bob Richardson lit table.
Right, the tap. They're going to push the Allies back to the sea. Yeah.
Yes.
So
all right, my number 2 line is, sorry, I have to unfold. Can we insert a sound effect of me of a piece of paper being unfolded? Thank you.
It took me a while to find that one. Me and Anne-Marie were scouring the archives for paper unfolding.
Well, thank you.
Go ahead, hit it.
So my second favorite line is when the Lancer scene with Trudy. The girl is named Trudy, right? Yeah, Trudy.
I think
Trudy,
so.
Yeah. So Sam Wanamaker, the director, who actually was a famous TV director, comes up afterwards, brilliant, and he says, Sam Wanamaker says, "Your idea about throwing the little girl on the ground just worked like a charm." And Rick Dalton says, "You said Shakespeare." Which again in Tarantino world is a double joke, because Sam Wanamaker, the Sam Wanamaker, was a TV director who had been previously a big Shakespearean actor.
No shit.
Yeah. So it's all like that. Yeah. All right, your number 3 favorite line, FT, please.
When he's at the it's again ridiculous. When he's at the Spawn's movie ranch and he comes in there with Pussycat, Cliff does, the hitchhiker, the hippie hitchhiker that he has a flirtation with all along, and all those great scenes there.
Right.
When the one woman goes like, "We love our pussy."
Right, yes.
And of course, Cliff goes, "Yes, we do." You know?
Sorry, when you were setting that up and thinking about these lines, I had an idea.
Uh-oh.
It's a what if, and I'm only bringing it up because in a previous podcast we had to swear never to mention the Coen brothers again. Do you remember that?
Oh, no.
That were, for legal reasons, we could never mention the Coen brothers. We'd have to refer to
The
them
brothers. You're supposed to say the brothers.
No, but I'm just going to go for it because this is I want. So here's the idea. What if the Coen brothers united with Tarantino on a screenplay? Because some of these lines feel, I was thinking Lebowski.
Yeah.
I think the three of them together, or even better, so having some kind of legal thing where they could become three brothers. I think would be incredible.
Legally adopted at age 58.
Right. Right, you're right, because that would be hard to pull off. So instead, they just do a movie together under the pseudonym the Three Stooges.
Three amigos.
Right. All right, it's time for my third favorite line, and then we got to move on, even though we're having fun.
I have one more after this, just real quick, though. Go ahead.
Okay. So my third favorite line, FT, is it's funny. It's back to the Lancer shoot, which is not really my favorite. So maybe we're gonna have the same line. I was amazed we did not have the same lines. Maybe this will be it. I have a feeling it is.
Me too.
So it's the scene on the porch during the lunch break that Rick Dalton is not allowed to eat at because his makeup has to dry. So he's on the porch with Trudy, and he's reading the book about the Western. She's asking him, what's it about, Trudy, the 8-year-old girl. And he describes the book to her eventually. The first thing he says is, I don't know the ending. And she's like, I'm not asking you for just what's it about. And he describes it. And the girl says,
sounds like a really sad book. Poor Easy Breezy. I'm practically crying, and I haven't even read it.
About 15 years you'll be living it.
What?
Just wait 15 years, you'll be living it. Was that your line?
No.
Okay, you got another one. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's real quick. It's from the Lancer script. And when you said the porch, I got scared because it's in the movie within the movie when Rick comes out and we see Timothy Oliphant, that standoff. And Rick goes, I know how restless you get when you run out of tamales. Just like, what the fuck? I was just like, how restless? Yeah, anyhow.
Actually, I'm glad we didn't move on because I actually have a line from the screenplay, which I'm going to ask you to read 3 times fast.
Okay.
And it's interesting because Dalton has a stutter, which not when he's acting, but in real life he has a stutter. But not when he's acting. He's forgetting his lines, and when he calls for a line, the line it's very long, but the key part of the line that he has to say, which I'm going to ask you to say, FT, is. Now go fetch her and tell her I'll give her a fat $5 gold piece if she plays her little chili pepper heart out. Go ahead, FT. Say it 3 times fast.
No, go get the chili pepper heart out. That's a good one. I know.
He's like line, and you hear the script person say, and it's this whole fucking long line. The meat of it, which is
Line. Go fetch her and tell her what?
Go fetch her and tell her I'll give her a fat $5 gold piece.
Right. Go fetch her and tell her I'll give her a fat $5 gold piece. She play her little chili pepper heart out, right?
Right.
Got it. I ain't gonna hurt her. I just want her to play the fiddle. Now go fetch her and tell her I'll give her a fat $5 gold piece. She play her little chili pepper heart out. Go on.
And I'm just sitting there, he's never going to do it. He's never going to pull it off.
Right.
But he does.
And he does, and that's some of his worst acting. What's interesting is when he's rehearsing early on with the tape, he pulls it right off when he's making his 6 or 8 whiskey sours. He pulls it off no problem.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good one.
So let us move on to talking about the acting briefly, if you're okay with that, FT.
I sure am.
And by the way, we haven't mentioned it. It seems obvious, but in case it's other people didn't make the connection, the title, which I keep saying over and over again, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. What's that title about, FT?
Once Upon a Time in the West, isn't that a nod to the old spaghetti westerns?
Yeah, Once Upon a Time in the West and Once Upon a Time in America were movies by Tarantino's hero, one of his favorite directors, Sergio Leone. Yeah,
yes.
And so not only tip of the hat to Leone, but also integrates really well with the movie, since obviously our character Rick Dalton goes off to star in spaghetti westerns with Sergio Corbucci, another one of Tarantino's directorial heroes. Have you seen any Corbucci, FT?
I have not. I'm not a fan of the genre.
Yeah, it's you might want to just check it out. It's I've got one in our shared Film Symposium West library, Django, which again Tarantino called Django Unchained after a Corbucci movie. But also interesting because can you think of another TV actor who might have been an actor in the TV show Rawhide, who went off to star in Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns? Who?
Of course, Mr. Clint Eastwood.
Yes. Not Clint Booth, Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood, not Cliff Booth. But interesting with that because I am a fan of High Plains Drifter. I'm not a big fan of Clint Eastwood's films, but I was wondering about the feet, all the foot shots, those angles that Quentin Tarantino was doing all throughout, I remember in it's either Once Upon a Time or in High Plains Drifter, you always hear the spurs.
Right.
And I believe there's those shots of the feet all the time,
right. No,
so that was, I think, a direct shot selection influence and an homage, as we would say in France or Canada.
I'm glad this is coming up because I'd totally forgotten about it. Watching the Lancer, the gunfight, especially out in the street, was that with Oliphant, the gunfight?
Yeah, when he shoots,
Watching that, I had to think, why hasn't Tarantino done a Western? And maybe that's going to be the final, he's touched on it, like Hateful Eight is a Western, but not really what not a Leone style Western really. And I think Django has some Western, Unchained has some Western elements in it, but watching him do that Western thing, you wonder why he hasn't done a full-blown Western.
Well, I think that's what he didn't want to do, a full-blown one, so he had this idea of the film within the film, so he got his flavor out with the slick behind-the-back shot, you know what I mean, that Timothy Oliphant does.
Right. All right, so before we dive into the cast that was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, let me hit you with a few of the actors that Tarantino wanted that did not make it into the movie.
Oh, yeah.
So for the Cliff Booth part, he had wanted Tom Cruise.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, wow! What a bad move.
That's what the internet says. So I was going to ask you what you would have thought as
terrible. Brad Pitt was just so perfect.
Oh no, I agree, I totally agree with you on Pitt, but Cruise in the right director's hands, like he is in Magnolia. Obviously, physically, he could probably. He could pull it off. It's hard to see anybody but Pitt in the role after seeing him in this movie, but I could see why Cruise was an idea.
I'm not a big fan of Cruise. I don't like him. I just think he's.
Wait, whoa.
What?
Okay. If FT, if in fact, sorry, I'm going to question you like a prosecuting attorney here.
Yes.
If it is true.
Yes.
That Tom Cruise is not, you're not a Tom Cruise fan, then why is Cocktail your favorite movie? Sorry.
Well, what's the one where he, anyhow. Yeah.
All right. So who was not only wanted, but was cast and under contract and went to table reads to play the part of George Spahn, the part now played by Bruce Dern?
Stacy Keach.
Interesting. No.
Would have been. Yeah. No, who?
Burt Reynolds.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, no, he was in, like I said, he was at the table reads and he died before the film shot.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I'll be damned.
Who says to Cliff in the movie? The Bruce Lee character says to Cliff in the fight scene, "You're kind of pretty for a stuntman, right?"
Yes.
And that line was contributed by Burt Reynolds at a table read, and everybody talked about because Brad Pitt hates being referred to as pretty, handsome. So the thing was, if Tarantino had written it, Pitt would have. But since it came from Burt Reynolds, Pitt was okay with it.
Interesting.
And it would have been impolite to take it out after Reynolds keeled over and died. He's dead now. Take that line out.
Shelf life.
All right. The Kurt Russell character, the stunt coordinator character, who was the original choice for that?
I don't even have a guess. Wait.
It's pretty obvious when you hear it.
It's always pretty obvious once you know it. Who?
You really can't guess?
No shit, I can't guess.
Okay, Jim Carrey. No, it was Mickey Rourke.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, perfect. And
that would have been really good.
Yeah, no, and Tarantino, the offer was put out to Mickey Rourke, and Tarantino said his agent was just fucking around and trying to, hardball him and everything else. And Tarantino said, "Here's the offer. You've got till end of day to accept or reject," and they never replied. And so Tarantino said, "Fuck him," and moved on to Kurt Russell, who he's used before.
Mr. Snake Plissken.
Yeah. But also, again, the interesting layering here, because this movie is so much about child actors.
He was a Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, Kurt Russell was one of the few child actors who actually went on to have an adult career, going strong into his. I think he's late 60s at this point.
Oh, me too. He's one of those guys that no matter what, he's Kurt Russell.
Right.
And my whole theory about actors like that is like, he's like the guy that looks like Kurt Russell, that you run into, you be on like at the supermarket and go, that guy resembles blah, 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 like Kurt Russell, or like, those actors that are always themselves. And that's the way I rationalize it. Kurt Russell always plays a guy that looks like Kurt Russell.
Right. So when they say, "Get me a Kurt Russell type,"
first thing that comes to mind is
they get Kurt Russell.
Yes.
Get me a Kurt Russell type. Well, what about Kurt Russell? No. I said a Kurt Russell type. Don't you listen? If I wanted Kurt Russell, I would have said Kurt Russell.
Well done.
Another thing about child actors, this movie is also littered with actors.
Make up your mind. Is it rife or littered?
It is rifely littered with the children of actors. Can you name them, FT?
Duh. No, I cannot.
Okay. And I'm not going to name their parts. A lot of them were in the Manson crew. Harley Quinn Smith, the daughter of Kevin Smith, the director Kevin Smith.
Huh.
Mia Hawke. Mia Hawke is the daughter of Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman.
How about
and
that?
And of course, Rumer Willis is the daughter of Bruce Willis and Demi Moore.
What a first name. Did they all have speaking parts, or?
I believe so, yes.
How about that? So they got their SAG cards.
Yes, they did. So let's start with male actor in a leading role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Who's your pick?
I don't know. Leo DiCaprio. Yeah, I think Leo was just great.
Interesting. Once again, you leave me free to pick a pick I might have picked on my own, which is Brad Pitt.
Huh. Interesting. If you would talk about acting being stylized,
I do feel like the performances were stylized, a lot of them, but I think that's why I really like Pitt's performance. I find him totally believable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
But you didn't find Leo realistic?
I'm glad we're talking about this. I did. I think so. Yes. So the central characters, Leo and Brad, I think are operating very realistically, but they're surrounded by a lot of actors who are operating on a quasi-realistic plane. Like, I don't find Marvin Schwartz to be realism.
Huh. That's funny. I found him to be like that kind of guy again.
Oh, he was that kind of guy. He was a character,
right?
But divorced from someone in real life, and part of that is the script, the lines he has.
I don't agree at all. I don't. I just find that if you had to talk about Hollywood people.
Right.
That's just my image of, you'd have those kind
of
guys.
Right, no, he's an image of that, but I don't know. It's interesting now that we're talking about it more. So best female actor, or as Trudy puts it, I don't call me an actress. I don't. What did she say about that?
Yeah,
I don't like.
I'm an actor.
The term actress is nonsensical.
Nonsensical, right.
Yeah. So best female actor in a leading role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Who's your pick, FT?
There's only one in a leading role. That's Margot. How do you say her last name? Robbie?
Yeah, Margot Robbie.
She was great.
Well, I guess she wins by default if she's the only one.
But it was a great performance. I thought, again with that.
Okay, but that's. I'm glad you stepped into my carefully laid trap. I don't find her. I find her performance is a little bit of an altered reality. I don't find her playing on a completely pure realism basis. I can't see her in a Carl Dreyer film.
The most realistic films of them all. You know what I mean? Yes, I can, and I love those glasses. By the way, you got to just give Wardrobe a nod, And
sorry, I screwed this up. I had a little trivia tidbit which I missed before we got into the casting choices that didn't get cast in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Do you know who Dreyer's original pick for Joan in his Passion of Joan of Arc was?
No,
Margot Robbie.
Margot Robbie. That was terrible.
Sorry. I found her to be, and I loved her performance, but I felt like it was, had some added spin on the ball, as they say in tennis.
As the bartenders say.
Okay, best supporting actors can be male or female.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Margaret Qualley.
Margaret Qualley. Who's that? Who's that?
Pussycat.
Huh.
I thought she was so fresh, so real. When you meet the young people like that. I just, I liked it. I really liked her work.
So any other supporting actors that stood out for you, FT?
What are you thinking, Bruce Dern?
Well, you talk about somebody being somebody. Bruce Dern was Bruce Dern. It was not the greatest performance of his career, but he was damn good.
Yes. Yeah, and writing was good there because I expected him to be sort of under duress. And when he's, his relationship with Squeaky I don't want to disappoint her.
Right.
It was nice writing there. But you're right, Bruce Dern was Bruce Dern.
You smoke 5 acid dip cigarettes a day. It's all pretty copacetic.
Yes.
I definitely think the implication was Dern was drugged and might have been a little bit tired from having his brain fucked out
by Squeaky.
As they say in the movie.
Now Damian Lewis, on the other hand,
right.
I knew immediately who he was. Who he was portraying. I should say Steve McQueen, just for those people who haven't seen this. And
sorry, I missed the first 2 or 3 times I saw this film. I didn't recognize it was Damian Lewis. Damian Lewis, in case it's not ringing a bell for everybody, plays Bobby in the Showtime show Billions, but also played Brody, the
Homeland,
POW soldier who comes home and becomes Carrie Matheson's boyfriend in season 1 and I think part of season 2 or maybe all season 2 in the series Homeland.
Yes.
And as FT said, he plays Steve McQueen. Interesting, I'd read that one of his first times he got cast, people said when he first started out as trying to get into TV at least, they said he looked like Steve McQueen.
Because he does.
I never, until this movie, I never looked at Damian Lewis and said, oh, that guy looks like Steve McQueen.
Family resemblance.
No, I don't think he looks like Steve McQueen. I think he looks like a Steve McQueen type.
Yes, exactly right. But that character has a burden there, and the burden is to point out the relationship, the odd relationship between Polanski, Tate, and J. Sebring. And it was well done. I could see people going like, it's expository, but it was something you would say. You would point out, because what does he say? Who was the woman next to him, by the way? Do you know that in your research? Who was the character that he was talking to?
I don't remember.
Because she comes up with a line that, Sharon has a thing for these short young men that resemble 12-year-old boys. And then, it goes back to Damian Lewis, who goes, that's why I didn't have a chance.
Yeah.
It was a great part. What is it, like 1 minute? 1 minute he's on the screen?
Well, I don't know. I couldn't help thinking, well, you could have had a chance when you were 12 years old and short. You waited too long. Well, first of all, you know about J. Sebring. You know who J. Sebring was?
No, I did not know.
He was the most famous hairdresser in Hollywood. Did Polanski's, did all the stars' hair, and was the basis for Warren Beatty's character in Shampoo.
Okay.
But here's a little factoid about Steve McQueen. On the night of the Cielo Drive murders, McQueen left his wife, Neil, took off on his motorcycle to go to the Polanski Tate house for that night, and ran into a girl and didn't come home.
You mean like he ran into the girl? Like Wojciech did for the doggy?
No, just ran into a girl, and I guess
met up with, as in.
Yeah, and didn't come home. Spent the night at the girl's house.
Right.
Neil McQueen wakes up. McQueen's not there, and then the news is everywhere that there's been murders at Cielo Drive, and Wojciech, the dog murderer, who's been murdered at the Cielo Drive house, his face was so beaten to a pulp, and so everybody thought that was McQueen.
Holy shit. Jesus.
And then McQueen wakes up at his girlfriend's house. It's almost like a bit from a movie, right? McQueen wakes up at his girlfriend's house, and, and what's all the fuss about? Everybody thought he was dead. And after that, we talked at the beginning of the podcast, a scant 12 hours ago, about how, these murders changed everything, and everybody started having guards. McQueen at the Tate funeral carried a gun, and from there on out always carried a gun.
How about that?
Yes. My vote for Best Supporting Actor, and really the standout actor in the film, is Julia Butters.
Who's that?
She plays Trudy, the 8-year-old actress.
Yeah. Nice.
And it was just so funny. She I mean, a lot of it was Tarantino. The character is so great, and like I said in the novel, she's such a key part of it. But the bit where she's doing the Daniel Day-Lewis thing, where she's like, "Please, you have to call me by my character's name when I'm on set."
Yes.
I always stay in character. Just killed me. And if you watch her work, when Rick Dalton is describing the plot of Easy Breezy, the saga of Easy Breezy.
Yes.
If you watch Julia Butters and you see her internal, the internal work, acting, reacting, she's doing stuff that a lot of actors who spent a lot of time in acting class don't pull off.
No, it was great work. It was. You're right. I forgot. I thought there was a category later about people under 12 feet. 12 inches. Something like that.
Last tidbit before we wrap up. Steven Spielberg came to visit the set of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah?
And he visited on the day they were shooting that scene, and cast Julia Butters in The Fabelmans, his movie.
How about that? Yeah. That's really great.
A Star is Born.
Indeed. Yeah. One of the lines there that she delivers in, Tarantino gave her was, which I'm going to use. It's interesting when Rick goes, "Would I bother you if I sit next to you and read my book?" And she looks up and says, "I don't know. Will you bother me?"
Yes.
It was great.
Yeah.
That is the answer,
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think that we haven't even delved into cinematography, production design, or some of our other favorite topics, but there's only so many hours in a lifetime. So I feel like this was a good one. I had a good time here today with you, FT. I know it's night. I know it's nighttime on the East Coast. Did you have a good time?
I had a great time.
All right. Well, on that note, let's go out on a high note like Quentin Tarantino is planning to do, and let's end this episode of They Shoot Films. Thank you, FT, and thanks to all the listeners. We really appreciate it. If you can, wherever you're getting your podcast, remember to like, remember to subscribe, remember to tell your friends about They Shoot Films, and let's say goodnight, FT. Have a good night, FT.
Have a good late afternoon, Ken.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
They Shoot Films is a production of Film Symposium West, produced by Anne-Marie De Palma, studio announcer Roy Blumenfeld.